Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. I'm not gay. I'm carrying my cross as a righteous person while other people are shrinking to fit. So let's get into this video. On the screen, you should see a picture that says a white boy killed 3 African American students or black students in Ohio. And that white person looks like an Anglo Jew or something to that effect. And the Klan was started by Nathan Bedford Forrest, who was of English descent, and Christianity, American culture has been called Judeo-Christian culture, so there's Jewish connections there no matter how you slice it. And in the future, I plan to make a playlist about Jews who clearly look evil, okay, so people can understand that it's not anti-Semitic to suspect the Jewish people as a group. Number one, they're the most clannish people out there. Think about Jews, they're very clannish. Black people aren't that clannish. Hispanic people, even though they're somewhat clannish, are not that clannish. Jews tend to be very clannish and very determined to work together to achieve a kind of common goal. And that includes Jews who aren't so bad and Jews who are so bad. Well, we get into that in the future. So one of the first things you can see here is that even though I'm part Jewish and part white, right, but my black African expression naturally is the dominant, not just because my dad's black, because black genes are very dominant and white and Jewish genes tend to be recessive, and that has implications on who God set apart and has chosen. Just like people choose the fruit that's more ripe naturally, okay, over the one that is more recessive, rotten, what have you. And I'm not trying to insult anybody, I'm setting the record straight here, okay. When somebody snakes someone, right, snakes poison people, right, and it makes them sick and they reduce them. They're not being chosen, they're snaking people. That's why in Isaiah 57 it says the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. And again, I use logic, not emotions here. I am mad at white Jew and LGBT groups more than other groups because of how complicit they are, but I define myself in terms of righteousness. So on top of my loyalty to God, my emotions line up with making sure I'm righteous more than they do with trying to get even with people or things of that nature. So I want you to also see the next video after this and see my occult wordplay playlist, my Havana Syndrome playlist, so you can understand this video more. So what was this person's problem with him? Well, first of all, those black people look better than he does. Okay, now if you're a racist white person, racist Jew, if you're in a cult and you're hyper brainwashed, if you're, your brain's been hacked for years, maybe you're confused about that. But at this time, on that picture, the picture I saw on the internet, on YouTube, the black people look better than that white person does. And it's like they're bitter about that Anglo Jew. Like they have a bitter English person and a bitter Jewish person that came together. They found each other, got married, whatever led up to that, right? People from the elite and they're kind of some of their poorer relatives, whatever that is. And they're jealous and they're bitter and they're spoiled enough to kind of lash out and want to kill them for them. Okay, why would somebody that bitter and ugly not want black people who look attractive around? Me personally, if I see a bunch of white chicks that are hot that live next door, especially if they're friendly to me, hey, the more the merrier, right? Jews, right? I do not have a problem with attractive white Jew and Jewish people moving in, even attractive LGBT female, if she treats me fairly, okay, and she's hopefully bisexual, what have you, so I can change her to, have a chance to change her to a righteous heterosexual woman. And this is part of why people are mad. So you have LGBT people mad at black people because they're very masculine, because they want to reduce heterosexual appeal to try to increase the odds that people will be LGBT. You have rich racist whites and Jews. You have hate groups. You have various people who see things in terms of competition that don't see themselves as racist, and they kind of come together in these groups, these social clubs, historically in this country, these social clubs that are still around, the Freemasons, okay, these corporations that are still around, they historically came together, these institutions, law enforcement, the military PSYOP units, okay, and Nathan Bedford Forrest was a Confederate officer, right, military training. So these people who train to kind of kill people who are different than they are, they kind of join with these the masses of other groups, right? It's not just the military doing it. And they go after what they perceive to be the competition, and and they're doing it because they perceive it to be worthwhile, because they don't have character. They're not true martial artists. Martial arts are about character and transcending race and emotion. It's about doing what is precisely and logically right. So in the next video, when I put up the picture of the guy with the black face, okay, they painted his face, okay, and in the video after that, I'm going to have one with a guy with the clown face, which is basically a form of blackface. You'll see what I mean. You'll see that this stuff comes together in a certain way that any detective or any police officer or any government worker who comes across this video, right? I think there's like a public safety, department or something, Department of Public Safety. Anybody who comes from any government branch that might come across this video would know for sure that my arguments are well-founded. I have 23 witnesses on record. Okay, I have a college degree, which means I'm in the top 38 percentile immediately of most educated Americans. And on top of that, I've done this massive amount of research, which puts me in the top fraction of a percent of people in America when it comes to education. So it's stupid to say, hey, this guy's some crazy guy, doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm obviously sane enough to be educated, have the facts, to make arguments that no one has a counter argument for, and the Egyptians said the heart is the seat of intelligence. I have the heart to tell the truth, where other people aren't smart enough to tell the whole truth, because that part of their brain has to do with fear, that has to do with being recessive and not rising to the occasion. I don't mean it racially, mind you, because people can work on themselves and kind of transcend their race, their flesh, their culture, their family line, and start bettering themselves if they come into the divine order, for example. But that part of them that is too weak to be smart is keeping them from being smart, because you're not truly smart unless you express it. Your brain's potential is one thing. Being smart has to do with applied brain activity. Okay, so really quickly, I forgot to say that on the picture it says you can go now. And a lot of people who are working for racist white Jew and LGBT people have been saying go to me in a sermon. They're like saying it like they're trying to, push the spirit out of me, the Holy Spirit. And it goes back to the fact that the Klan, and they weren't the only people that saw it that way, used to wear white sheets, which specifically stood for the spirits of white people, of Nordic people, but the Judeo-Christian spirit of Nordic people was their argument. And it's what is behind that. There's layers of their arguments, right? There's cults behind the churches, right? So that's what it stood for. And so that's a huge form of racism. One of the main forms of racism is culturalism, right? Is refusing to allow other races to have their spirits, their cultures, and trying to get them to assimilate. Okay, not because of universal pinpoint and moral precision, but because of your racial agenda. What they're doing is extremely racist. What the government is doing is extremely racist. That's why they're actually deporting tons of people, because when the right-left paradigm came together, it involved forcing people to assimilate, deporting people, making them an example, and saying, hey, go, because we like things this way, because there's some kind of feeble-minded worms without any heart, without any sense or wisdom or insight.